Day, good morning. Committee of the Whole is back in order. When we left off, we were on revenue and taxation. There was a request to invite the director. So I want to thank the director and the deputy director for joining us this morning. Let's proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Camacho. Thank you for coming today. And
Good morning.
Thank you both for coming. I see that we have a handout as of September 30, 2017. Can you please just explain the handout of this, the items? Just use one row as a description.
Yes, this handout basically is what we referred back when we had our budget hearing back in July. Yeah, we were trying to explain which handout?
This right here.
Oh, the DOA.
Yes,
Oh,
your staffing pattern.
okay.
So just to clarify, this is the recruitment status report for number certification packets prepared October 1st, 2016 and up to September 30th, 2017.
Yes, I didn't really get a chance to look at this, but there are some positions that I guess are looking at the report that are no selections have been made in I think 1, 2, 3, or 4 positions that I see here. This is based on DOA, but I have another handout also that we issued out to everybody. Basically,
So we're specifically talking about your staffing pattern.
Yes.
So, and that was in question. And the reason why I was questioning it is because in fiscal year 17, you had approximately 30 vacant positions. And that was of your current staffing pattern, which I looked back and it shows that you were appropriated for those positions. So I want to go back into your staffing pattern and your recruitment status report because it's significant to see when these people were hired or why these positions are still vacant coming the end of fiscal year 17. So can we discuss the recruitment status report, please?
I guess looking at DOA, there's 4, I guess, that I'm looking at. As just a few minutes, just compared to what we have on a reconciliation for our report that I have also here, which I hand out to everybody.
Okay.
What I was trying to explain earlier is that in our budget hearing in July, we were trying to explain that when we submitted our budget, at that point of time, there was a lot of vacant positions in January. And since then, there's actually, if you look at this report that I gave, there's 23 vacant positions when we submitted our budget. And since then, we have filled basically 20, I believe, and there's 3 pending right now, according to our records at DRT. And if you could look at the report, the pending ones are just basically the first one, which is the computer operator 3, 1 revenue agent, which is the pending announcement, and 1 that we just completed our interview and pending selection. So at that point, we were trying to explain in the budget that yes, we had a lot of vacancies, but since then, if you look at the date field, we have filled those vacancy positions.
And you fill these vacancy positions with fiscal year 17 appropriation and allocation?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I'm looking at what the amount of DRT requested, and I'm thinking that you requested $13,592,876, which you accounted for of these 23 vacant positions in the listing. Is that correct? You requested $13,592,876. Yes? And then, so if you requested this much, I'm sure that you accounted for these 23 vacant positions, correct? Yes, it is. It's a near proposed. Okay. Now, on top of those 23 vacant positions, 20 of which you filled, by the way, and now there's 3, there's an additional 9 revenue agents. Well, you're asking for 25 additional revenue agents with the argument that you would be able to collect more money if you hired 25 more people in that division. That's
Correct. I mean, yeah, I think you're talking about the present budget bill where we're to recruit 10 revenue officer and 5 revenue agents. Yes.
right. So just actually, it says that you have 10 revenue officers,
Yes.
5 revenue agents, 4 tax investigator 1, 4 compliance officer 1, and 2 compliance inspector 2.
Yes.
25. So that's 25 personnel additional.
Yes.
And there was, early on into the budget, we discussed that each person that we hire is guaranteed to bring in $300,000 additional for tax withholding and BPT.
I just want to, that was something that we had for some time, a base mark for every revenue agent that basically comes. But what we actually did when I went back to our office is basically we look at the last 5 to 7 years of production report, because in revenue agents, basically some years are good years, some years are bad years. For example, in FY15, we had a deficiency of $21 million. And in 16, depending on when the money or the cases are closed, we have about $9 million in FY16. So what we did basically was went back as far as I think 5 to 7 years and look at the deficiencies. Deficiency, by the way, is our tax that we generate from these audits from the revenue agents. So when we look at that, and based on the number of average revenue agent throughout those fiscal year, we were looking at more for like $700,000 for the revenue agents per year average when we go back as far as 7 years. On the revenue officer side, again, you know, last year we collected, I believe, 41 to $44 million on receivables, but the other year we collected only about $20-some million.
Right, but you claim that due to some kind of influx of early on in the budget, that it wasn't specifically because of the revenue agents. There was something that came back in surplus to you that you're able to lower your receivables.
Yes, this I'm talking right now about you're right, the revenue officer. So when we look at the receivables, basically, you know, if you go back, basically if you look at $44 million that we collected, you're looking at basically cash-wise, you're looking at $600,000 to $700,000 on the average.
So this is my concern, is the budget is specifically set for you without no public law in place to hire 25 additional people under the recruitment of revenue agents to increase revenue collections and compliance and audits tax filings. You also have 6 LTA in your staffing pattern. And there's no guarantee really that additional personnel is going to bring out that amount of money, because, and even there's no guarantee that you're going to be able to hire that personnel. And we all understand that DRT has a high attrition rate. So would it be fair to say that perhaps we would allocate you half of what you are requesting? By the way, this is more than what you requested for your FY18 revenue. And the reason why I'm asking that is because the Guam Police Department, there's a public law, 33163, that gives them the authority to hire personnel and to fill 40 vacancies every year. And so I'm just thinking that would it be fair to give half of the general fund allocation to rev and tax and then put in the back a provision that whatever BPT and tax withholding is extra, you can use the remainder to fill in the other half?
Okay.
Go ahead, Mary.
Can I just respond to that? You know, you're right. There is no guarantees as far as how much every agent will collect. However, these positions are all critical to the department because not only is it collection, it's also enforcement. We have regulatory, and we also have compliance. So even when you discuss about, you know, tax investigators, the collection is not guaranteed. However, we send a message, and that message is fairness to all, and everybody pay their fair share. We need these positions. And compromising right now with GPD, revenue tax is the heart of the government, correct?
I wouldn't know that.
It is. Okay.
I think that's
the
opinion.
revenues come in through revenue tax. Without the revenues, you don't have a budget. So I say, let's just create more revenues and perhaps use that extra money that wasn't included in this budget to hire the additional. But these positions are critical. We're already short-staffed. Everybody is looking forward to these 36 positions that we're going to hire. We already had a meeting with all the supervisors, administrators, that this is what we're looking forward to.
Yeah.
And
I'm just looking at also the rate of the vacancies that they put out. You know, you put in, since some regulatory examiner, October 2016, the selection still has not been made. November 18, 2016, it doesn't seem like that position has been filled. So I'm just trying to meet halfway. I'm not trying to, please don't mistake it that I don't think that revenue tax is any less important than any other agency.
We're both important, correct.
Yes.
We're
So
both
I'm not trying
important.
to
GPD
argue
is safety. I agree.
Yeah.
They're important. But what I'm trying to say today is that revenue tax has been short for many, many years. 20 years ago, we had a staff of 260. Now, with more laws, more requirements, more services that we administer, we have less employees. So we've been suffering for the past 30 years, 20 years with the staff that we have now. And on top of that, every new law that this body administers or passes is the same people, again, that has to enforce those new laws. So we're really shorthanded right now.
Right,
This
but I'm
will
saying
bring
that
us up to-
I understand that you're shorthanded.
Yes.
I totally understand that.
Yes.
I'm just saying that the rate of the hiring in the appropriation that you're getting, there's no guarantee to fill that gap. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that I mean, everyone is short in the government, but I'm not.
Yes.
And then what they put in here, usually for additional classified position, you need a public law. Here, we're putting this in a budget. Maybe perhaps the budget hearing is something of a public hearing. I don't know. But it just doesn't seem that this was right-sized,
Yes.
and we're using the people's money to right-size an area that didn't have its due process.
I'm sorry, Senator, I understand your situation. However, this should have been brought up during the budget, the revenue side.
This is the budget
we're
side
done with the
bringing it.
revenue, correct? We can't even adjust it. Why don't we go back and adjust it 2.5 or whatever that money is that you need? But,
Right.
to short somebody else, especially revenue tax, that is in dire need of this staff, I believe that's not going in the, okay, I hate to say this, but in the right direction. We're trying to move forward. We're trying to give more service, more, regulate more. We have the marijuana law coming in. We don't even have the staff for that. It's just, we're short right now. This position, I really appreciate the legislature coming to us, Senator, our committee, Senator Joe, for bringing this up, because this is a long time coming. A long time.
Right, but it took you a year just to hire 23 personnel. It's going to take you another year to hire additional 25, plus the the recruitment of vehicle registration officers, which is another 11 positions.
It's
You're
justifiable.
just not moving
Sarah.
fast enough. So would
Yes.
you think that we could appropriate this money in the back end for what you collect? It's only fair. I think it's a reasonable request because it depends on how much you collect. So don't you think that it would be a little bit more of motivation that to get the remaining 550,000, if we go half down the line, that'll be more motivation for the staff to ensure that they collected that much that they promised the people that they would.
Senator, I don't even appreciate that. Work harder and get motivated so you can get more employees? What are you trying to say?
That's not what I'm saying.
No, it
I'm
doesn't
not
make
saying work
sense.
harder. I'm saying
It
that you
doesn't-
can use it to offset.
It doesn't make sense. Okay, right now you're saying, tell your staff to work harder, collect more, and we'll get more employees. I don't agree. That doesn't even make sense right now.
Senator, I know. I know.
I think that policy decision will have to be made by us, but I think Senator
Yeah.
Torres just wanted to,
Okay.
did you have a point?
Please don't be upset. I'm not trying,
Yeah,
we're
let's-
just trying to right size. That's all. I'm not trying to attack you or the
Right
agency.
sizing would be
Thanks,
allowing these positions to
everybody.
go through.
Okay.
Senator Torres.
Mr. Speaker, I was going to ask Senator Nelson if she had a specific amendment or request, because in listening to the dialogue and in understanding the mandates of the Department of Revenue and Taxation, there is nothing that I would want more than to give them the additional support that they need to accomplish their mission, which is to help regulate, enforce, and beef up the revenue stream to the government. I know that we tend to get discouraged about whether we can have an immediate return on an investment. But I think that in this sort of scenario, if you understand the enforcement and the collection of taxes, it isn't automatic, because the process itself, as Mrs. Benito will confirm, and Mr. Camacho, the process also has a mechanism where there's an administrative process, and there's also a course that you can go through to the court. So it's not an automatic, hand me the bill, give me a check, and so we have to appreciate that you have to start someplace, and whether the return on the investment of additional personnel happens this fiscal year would be ideal, but at best we can anticipate that the windfall of that investment can be realized at the most in the upcoming fiscal year, given the nature of making assessments and going through the process if someone were to dispute the assessments and the penalties that are being alleged. So I can understand your frustration up there, because it is always a chore to have to justify an investment into your department. But I think that if we can appreciate the system by which the taxpayers are also afforded the opportunity to challenge anything that they see as an unfair assessment against them, that time doesn't always work in our favor as a government when it comes to collections. But from one thing that I want to just emphasize, a point that you made, Ms. Benito, is it's true. The half of the battle is getting people to understand that enforcement is going to come down.
Yes.
And so it is an incentive for people to pay their taxes when they know that there's a collector and an auditor that's chasing them down. And so that part I can appreciate. I'm in support of giving revenue and tax additional monies for personnel, because I think that we've seen over the years a decline in that enforcement and investigative arm of DRT, which really is a necessary part for people to be more law-abiding and timely in their submission of taxes due. So I just wanted to say that I stand in support, and I know that a demonstration of an immediate return is not practical, especially in your situation, only because the law affords us the opportunity to due process. So We hear you. I just want to
Thank you.
be sure that you knew that we understand. Thank you.
I think the comments by Senator Nelson were preliminary to her motion to change the appropriation from 1.1 million to to 550,000 for rev and tax and 550 for GPD. So if she would make that motion, then we could discuss the motion now that you've asked the questions of them, and they're obviously not, they're not the ones that are going to make that decision. We are, and so let...
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just, point of information. Earlier this week, DOA told us that the hiring process with certification could, they guaranteed 2 weeks. Apparently, the way that the rate of their hiring with this handout they gave us is not 2 weeks. It totally contradicts what they say that it will be. To the requirement by law, there's already a law in place that we should follow to allocate GPD funding for the additional hiring of 40 officers. There was no law for additional personnel for rev and tax, and so I make the amendment that we give rev and tax half of what they are asking, 550,000, and then the other half to GPD, because their revenues do not add up for additional hiring, the remainder 550,000.
I object.
Okay, but I just want everybody to understand that she has now made, Senator Nelson has now made the motion on page 80 to reduce the amount on line 26 to 550,000. And then the other, she's going to have the 550,000 held for GPD in a subsequent section. So that's the motion that she has made. She's asked the questions that she needs. Any other comments? Senator Augustine, you've objected. Did you wish to make a comment or just object?
Unless one of my colleagues wants to support comments of reference to her motion, then I will speak after that.
Okay. Any of the senator wish to be heard on the Nelson amendment to reduce the revenue and taxation amendment on section 3, page 80, line 26 to 550, with the other 550 going to GPD? Madam Vice Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, we've Rev and Tax here. We're allowed to ask some questions right now, right? That's what I would like to do regarding this discussion.
In furtherance of your comments, you may. I believe that she has gone through and shown why she thinks it's not necessary to give them the full
Mr.
amount.
Speaker, if I have to withdraw the amendment for the body to ask questions of Rev and Tax, then I will.
No, I think they're
Pardon?
relevant. It's
No,
all
no,
relevant to the
no, there's
discussion.
no need
but
to
I
withdraw.
yeah.
You can continue. It's on this motion. At least we are on a motion that we're discussing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to check with Rev and Tax. We had talked throughout this budget session regarding the TEFF revenues and how Department of Education, they said, was short because we were not able to collect in real estate property taxes what we were owed. And do you have any comment regarding that? What is the hang-up in collecting real property taxes? I guess every year there's a big receivable. So what does that constitute? Are those challenged taxes, or is it? What do you see?
Well, first thing, I requested for some budget to do the revaluation for it's due 2018, but we didn't get that funding. But part of the collection basically is generally throughout the years when we make those assessments, which is roughly about 29 million every year, there's a small portion every year that taxes are not paid, which roughly runs about 3 million. So from that 3 million, we try to go out and get those listing out to those people that are not paying. So, and it also depends on 1 year, I believe, for FY 15, we had a higher collection on BPT. That's through our efforts going after the delinquent list for all those years that they're not coming in. It just depends on people coming in and paying their real property
But
tax.
specifically in regards to the TEFF, which is real property taxes.
Yes.
Yeah, I would think that they're estimating a set amount every year, and I would think that should be a set amount if we're not reevaluating the property. But what is the problem in collecting the real property taxes?
That's the question.
Because there's they've said, I'm looking for the amount.
If I may.
I don't see it exactly, but it's
Senator-
much larger than 3 million in
Right.
TEFF receivables.
Yes, you're right. And I believe some of that is attributed to probate cases. We've seen properties that are, 10, 15 properties that are in probate. So probate, off-island owners. And again, we brought this up initially from the very beginning that what we like to do, and no panic to the public, again, is just properties that have not been paid in 10 years or more possibly go through the auction. And we do have to go through the AAA process and rules and regs before we do that. But I think that's what we need to do. We need to step it up. Some of them we do, I believe now, with the business license clearance, now we do real property clearance, and we've been able to have, these businesses pay their property tax.
That's great. So you think this estimate of receivables that we have is going to be constant? That amount will be receivables because of these problems? I mean, I guess you've got a little bit of progress because of the
Yes.
business license.
Right. But I think you
cross-check.
always have a collectible. That's not something that's going to go away. But if we collect, if we have less than 1%, then that's a pretty good rate. But we do want to step up our efforts and possibly go into auctioning some properties that over 10 years, no payment or delinquent over 10 years.
All right, because we made a big switch in this budget. We used to put DOE under, give them all the TEFF as a very reliable source, and I guess it's just become not reliable, or the amount is not reliable. So, yes, your efforts would be appreciated in that. Thank you. And I just want to confirm, in your budget requests, is it correct that you only requested 13, but now you are, in this budget, getting 25 employees? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, 13,000.
Mr. Speaker,
13 million,
I guess I
yes.
just
Sorry.
would like to confirm with you, Mr. Speaker, if they've only requested 13, why did we increase it to 25?
I think 14 million is what we asked for this budget.
Pardon?
14 million
Total.
total.
Is that right?
14 point.
They're not. What they requested was 13.5. The additional amount that's on subsection 3 is
special
part
funds.
of that 14 million, which is the increase. We gave them the additional increase to give them the additional personnel.
But you gave them more than the personnel that they had requested? They had only requested 13 additional employees? I mean, I don't know, I heard that in the earlier discussion.
No, 13 additional.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
The 13.5 did that include additional employees, Mr. Speaker, compared to 2017?
It included their vacant positions,
Yeah.
All right.
and so we were giving them additional personnel to take care of the real property ID and that line, and to address collections.
Because I remember the budget hearing, but I don't remember that that number being discussed, the 25 additional employees. And but
I think this bill is proposing that we get additional 25
That's right.
employees. Yes.
Yes.
That were
25 in
Yes.
addition
For
to
the-
to
for
the
the
additional
enforcement.
amount that would have been included with the 13 and a half.
Yes.
13.5. That would have already included funding vacancies that existed, and this is a 25 on top of that, right?
It would barely cover vacancies, if it covered vacancies at all, because that's why we were going with their expenditures.
Okay, and another thing at the hearing, I remember we talked about the lines at the motor vehicle division, and at that point, I had one daughter who had stood in line for 7 hours, and then after that hearing, I had
Yes.
another daughter in line for 7 hours. But I mean, we've heard it from everybody in the community about the lines. But
Yes.
I thought that you had assured us at that time that that was temporary and that would have been resolved by the end of the month, and that there was nothing to worry about. It was not a matter of being understaffed necessarily, just a matter of, I don't know, different things that you said you were going to take care of, and it was very temporary.
Right.
But so that's why I'm surprised again to see an addition of 11 employees if you were able to take care of it. But I
there was-
realize that as of today, it's not necessarily taken care of because
are
the lines
some-
are still long.
Right.
Just to start, typically summer is a very busy day. That's when all the students are out. And I mean, I have to admit that when I walk into the department every morning, there's a long line. But if you go there now, it's not even, the line is not even long. But so we're adding, I think in the last few weeks, we cross-train some people to ensure that, you know, we have more people there to process driver's license as well as vehicle registration. So I think the flow of the waiting time has improved drastically.
Okay, thanks. So what about then these additional 11 employees simply for the motor vehicle division? I mean, I know that we've got some ideas about, you know, people have brought to you about having satellite stations for renewing your driver's license or your vehicle registration, things like that. But before those are implemented, I mean, is this necessary? Is this where you really want this money to go into motor vehicles licensing? If you've got that already under control versus, yeah, I mean, I can see additional tax if you are, you know, promising increased tax collection.
Yes.
But
We still need those positions. I believe what we're doing now is we're cross-training people in the department because if someone basically calls in, let's say 4 people calls in sick in a day, we're crippled 4 employees processing those, whether it's vehicle registration or driver's license. We still need those additional, and then the population and the process for the Real ID Act requires, vetting those informations, like, for example, the mayor's verification, Social Security, and all those things. So it kind of like takes a little bit longer now to do these things. So we still, those positions, those 11 positions that they're proposing is still critical to the department right now to enhance our services in those areas. Very critical.
Yes, and you know, to add to that, like he mentioned, when we've had this, and that's also what created those long lines, is when an employee, and some of them sometimes 3 to 4 at a time. You know why? Because they're burnt out. They are just so tired. At a driver's license right now, they're working extremely hard, and some of them don't even take a break because of the long lines. They want to, get the lines moving. So they're working double hard. And that's why these positions are critical. If we're able to control those lines at that area, we can possibly start looking at satellites. We can use these employees to man a satellite. So that will also help the population, the community.
Okay, this calls for 6 vehicle registration officers. Would those vehicle registration officers also be used to process the real IDs or the motor vehicle ID? I mean, the driver's license?
I'm so glad you asked that. Those are 2 separate areas, and I was thinking we can switch those numbers around. I would rather see more people with driver's license. That's where the long process is, the vetting. I would like to see that possibly moved around,
And
if that's possible.
So do you mean this I was going to also ask you about the driver's license examiner, because it's my understanding that these we've outsourced a lot of that, and that we've got private companies doing license.
Well, you're right. We did
exams.
outsource. However, that's just something we did temporarily. Remember that they also handle mail-in driver's license. They handle Real ID, Guam Real ID.
So this is the position that
They handle-
handles those
Yes.
long lines, this
Yes.
real, the driver's license
Yes,
examiners?
yes,
Okay.
correct.
That's what I want to know. So your cross-training is not enough of
No.
other employees in the department?
No,
and,
no.
And your assurances that that division was taken care of and that those long lines would go away?
It's
You're now saying that's not correct, that these are critical? We
no,
need
those
these?
were a temporary fix. Remember, why do we want to cross-train? Right now, it's temporary. We're taking away from their real duties when we do that. We'd like to end the cross-training. That's strictly for emergencies only, and in this case, we're so short that we had to cross-train. So we have to eliminate the cross-training. That will be possible with these positions.
So would it be enough to add 6 driver's license examiner positions and delete the 6 vehicle registration officer positions?
I like to, no, just those two, the 6 and 5, possibly make driver's license 7, and then put 4 at vehicle registration.
Why do we need additional vehicle registration officers? That nothing has changed in the vehicle registration requirements, has it? And we still have the online vehicle registration?
Yes, we do have that available. However, most of them are going to be retiring, and we still need them to verify other things. They still do the new vehicles. So there is work behind the counter that nobody sees, and that's the auto dealers. They still have the other off-island vehicles that they have to register. So those are still needed as far as positions.
But you're saying that the work has, times 6 employees worth of work it's
Well-
increased in 1 year?
That's why I would like to move that to driver's license, if that's possible, at this point. I don't know. Is it possible?
Mr. Chair, I just a point of information, Mr. Chair. There's clearly an inaccuracy in their needs. They requested 13. We're giving them 25. They didn't even prepare to have a 25, the plus 13, so that's what, 12? They didn't even prepare to have 12 additional hires. So I say that we give them the 13 that they asked for at the budget hearing, and we move that so that GPD, and this is not all, because
Your
GPD...
motion has already been made.
Okay.
It's on the floor. We'll have a vote in a minute after everybody's had a chance to ask, and then we'll see what happens at that point.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other senator wish to pose any questions to the two from Senator Esteves?
Just make some clarifications for the record. The Real ID is a federal system, correct?
Federal requirements.
Your mic, Mr. Camacho?
Yeah, federal requirement that we're following, yes.
Okay, that's what I'm tracking. All right, now once somebody goes through all the rigorous amount of documentation in order to get input into the Real ID system, do they remain in the Real ID system? So, I stood in line for 4 hours to get my driver's license renewed. Do I stay in the system? Will I have to go through the same rigorous process to be input into the system, or will I remain in the system?
I believe once you're vetted into the system, that would remain in the system.
Do you believe or do you
Then-
know? Is that yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Now, as part of the process that you have to follow, when it comes time, so I'm renewed for a while now. Now, when it comes time for another renewal of my driver's license, am I going to have to re-verify all that same documentation, or is there a different verification since I'm already in the system, similar to a passport?
From my understanding, I think only if there's a change in your status.
Say again?
Only if there's a change in your status.
And
Let's
just
say-
describe
let's say,
the
for example,
change.
name change or you're married or those things. Then we probably have to be revetted.
So with the previous statements that this is really a temporary issue with the driver's license because of the Real ID system, do you have a time frame of when you think that might be lapsed? Because I think I share some of the same sentiments. If we're going to fund you to hire FTEs for something that's truly temporary, then maybe there could be some compromise, whether they're FTEs or LTEs, just to kind of handle the influx right now. You get what I'm saying? Because each Guam employee, especially if we're talking about an FTE, comes with a very, very long fiscal liability to the government of Guam. And before we make that commitment, I'd like to know that, there's a necessity.
I believe this vetting process is going to go for several years, because if you haven't renewed your license, or you got your license, for example, today, and you're not going to renew your license until 5 years from now, and you decide not to come in and get a real ID license, then that will still apply in the future. So
now, all new licenses obviously are all in the Real ID system. All renewals are in the Real ID system. Do you have some type of metrics that you use? I think you could actually extrapolate how long it would take. It should be some simple math, right? How many licenses are actually issued on the island? What percentage is already with the Real ID system versus what percentage is not in the Real ID system? And then you should, I'm assuming you have tracking mechanisms of when licenses expire. So, I think it's a fair assumption that you should be able to kind of extrapolate how long are we talking here, and how long will you need these additional employees until we fully transfer into the Real ID system. Is that anything you've developed?
I think we have some of the numbers, but if I'm not mistaken, there's roughly around 45,000 licenses, I think, that are issued that are current right now, I believe. So these licenses, depending on when they expire, whether you took a 3-year or a 5-year, so that's what we can take a look at it. But what I was saying earlier is that it can even go as far as 4 years, because we started this process earlier this year.
I guess what I'm asking is I'm trying to understand your assessment that this could go on for years without actually having no data to back it up. So let's say there was 45,000 licenses issued. Could you tell me right now how many have been transferred to the Real ID system?
I don't have that number, but
and then how many this year, based on expiration date, give or take maybe 100 for lost driver's license, would need to be 100% need to be transferred to the Real ID system, because you can expect those renewals because you are tracking the expiration date. And then next year, whether it's 5,000 this year, 5,000 next year, 5,000 next year, that way we can actually apply a little bit of math, and as we're talking about hiring people. And again, it's not that with regards to this, I would love to give Rev and Tax more people, but I'm saying if we're looking at hiring people into the government, that's potentially a lifelong liability if you include an entire career as a classified employee, plus the lifelong annuities that we have to pay. So before we make that fiscal commitment, at least to something that I'm foreseeing as something temporary, I'd just like to know, how we can better assist you without applying that lifelong liability kind of blindly to the government as a whole.
Okay, if I may add, you're looking at, this is probably temporary is what you're saying. I get that. However, this is also in anticipation of the military buildup. Remember, this is not going to go away anytime soon. The military buildup's coming. We have to be prepared for that too. With the staff we have right now, if you think those lines are long now, they're going to get even longer.
Now, do we have some kind of data? And last question, please. And I want to, this is probably more of a statement. Obviously we don't have the numbers. My request, again, and this is only because of our fiduciary responsibility to the people of Guam in the long term, is there a way that we could develop and provide some metrics, which is just simple tracking? We don't even need anything fancy. We could do it on an Excel spreadsheet by adding these individual driver's licenses, and based on historical data and based on data that you already have in your system in anticipation of when these renewals may come, and also maybe communicating with the military, because they have good tracking metrics on how many incoming personnel they may have, that we can better project the necessity, and then we can fine-tune the number, because this could go both ways. Maybe the 5 driver's license examiners might not even be enough. And then projecting in the future for future budgets, maybe the space requirement you have isn't even enough, and maybe you'll need satellite locations. But we can't even start to forecast and try to project to and anticipate that necessity if we don't have metrics kind of generated to back that up. So again, this is not saying that I don't support it. It's just in order to support you and support your mission and maintaining our fiscal responsibility to the people of Guam, I would just like to know how we can forecast better. So I'm hoping you can assist me with that.
You know, Senator, yes, there is a way. There's always a way to probably project that, but the needs are immediate today. What we need today is we're already short. Today we're short. You're thinking, is this temporary? No, because we have the military buildup we need to forecast and prepare for.
And thank you for that. And all I'm asking is, if you're going to forecast, let's forecast like professionals in government with numbers, and you know, I mean, not just kind of pulling an idea out of the hat. We know that. We do know that there's going to be a need ahead, but we don't just kind of blindly throw money when we're counting dollars without some metrics and some form of tracking to back it up. And that's all I'm asking. I mean, this may be new. I'm just hoping we can progress and grow as a government to start kind of applying real math and science behind these.
Yes, Senator, we can do the projection. We just can go back and get those numbers, and we'll be happy and glad to give you those numbers.
Thank you. And if you need assistance, I mean, I'll work on the weekend, or I'll work at 2 in the morning, and I'll crunch the numbers for you if you just provide me the data. Whatever you need. If you guys are that short, I don't mind making that assisting in that. But it's just nice to have the information as senators to be able to support you and start planning ahead and anticipating for what the needs might be. That's the only way we're going to be able to work together. Thank you.
Senator Espaldon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, just a couple pieces. One is that I believe, and again, without legal counsel here, I can't really cite a case, but I think in the past there was a case brought by one of the former governors of our island, basically contesting the legislature's placement of numbers of how many people and where they're going to be and things like that, because in essence, it's more of an executive function. If we pass a budget and he has full transfer, 15% transfer authority, again, it's upon the chief executive's discretion to really fill the positions that he believes is most critical. And so if we're talking about, you know, a compliance officer and a revenue agent and all that, that would be up to the governor and his staff and his departments to determine whether it's 2 or whether it's 1. And again, I think now we're getting into the weeds when we really don't need to. Because the only issue right now, and I'm going to ask the question, is based upon the amendment that's been proffered, is whether revenue and tax, knowing full well that there is, what was stated, there was a request for $13.5 million. You're getting $1 million more, in essence, $1.1 million more. The amendment basically asks that the question really is, at this point, out of that $1.1 million over what you requested, and which the budget provides for to fill certain positions so you can do a better job, can you live with half that $1.1 million at this time? Would you be amenable to accept the rationale that we need at least a few more dollars to give to GPD, right? And so taking that 1.1, dividing it in half, can you live with that for now to try to fill at least some of the positions, knowing full well that the governor even has transfer authority should he need to support revenue tax at the front end? And then we're hoping that if that's the case and you generate the extra income, that we can then also make whole any other place that it may have transferred funds from to be able to support your operation. So the question is, can you live, instead of $1.1 million,
Can I
with
just say that?
$550,000 for now?
I guess Marie spoke about that earlier, Senator, but you know, we're very proactive on this 25 positions that we're looking at. Right? We even made contact with the IRS to come down before the end of the year to do some trainings for these revenue agents, revenue officers, and even sending some of the people out for criminal investigation training. So we're really looking forward. It's a big investment. Like I said earlier, I just want to say that every revenue agent that we put in there is going to produce at least $500,000 based on our average estimate for the last 7 years. And every revenue officer that we put in there is an average of $700,000 to $800,000 of revenue a year that that's something that you have to look at. I mean, what's a revenue agent now? It's costing the government about $30,000 some. And when you look at the productions that we're going to bring in, maybe to fund GPD and other agencies that when we bring this money in, I spoke earlier. Last year, we on the production for revenue agents, we brought in $9 million. Previous to that is $21 million. So you look at the math. What investment are you making? And this is like looking at a tree over revenue and taxation, and you have all these branches, but you don't want to move those branches. You want to add to those branches. But once you start adding to those branches, you're going to produce more revenues. Where does this revenue go? To the general fund. So, in other words, you're asking our department, do you want? I think that speaks for itself. In other words,
Ms. Camacho,
I mean, you give us the 25 position. You look. I said earlier about criminal cases. You know, we've been closing criminal cases for the last few years. That exposure out there, more people are coming in, more people are paying, more exposures out there in the streets to let people know that we are present. You know, we have. Imagine adding 25 positions to the enforcement and walking out in the street. Senator Sanagan used to do that. I mean, that really sets a precedence out there that we're out there, you know, try to bring in the revenues and if Marie wants to add more to that, I think she wants to.
Can I just say something? Oh, I'm sorry. I'll let you,
Okay.
Ms.
All right.
Benito.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Senator. To add to that, you know, you keep saying we always get criticized for collection. Here's our opportunity to shine. Give us more people, we'll give you more service. Right now, we have a lot of work to do. We all know there's money out there that people that aren't paying their taxes, you know, underground cash payments. We need to capture all of that. In order to do that, we need these positions. In addition, we keep talking about the 25. You keep saying in the interest of the people of Guam. Well, I'd like to say the same thing for the 11 people to DMV. In the interest of the public and our service to the public, we need these positions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Benito and Mr. Camacho. And I appreciate the answers, but just to be perfectly clear, I've always been supportive of beefing up the Department of Revenue and Taxation because I agree with you, Ms. Benito, that you are the center point of all collections of revenue for the government.
Yes.
And if we diminish your capability or don't support your ability to do that, then you're right. The other agencies throughout the government won't be able to see the kind of requests that they're making because there is no increase in revenue collections. And the other thing that I want to note also is something you said, the burnout factor. Because you are overworked and because we have passed mandates that add on to your responsibilities at Rev and Tax, there is that burnout factor. And again, that just decreases the ability of the central agency that collects our money, right, that goes to all the various departments and instrumentalities to the government of Guam. It diminishes your ability to help us help those agencies. So I appreciate your input. I just needed to ask that question because that's what the amendment is trying to do. And so the question in my mind was, can you live with half of it at this point? Your answer is no. You would rather see up front so that you can go out and make more, try to collect more money, and in the end, that might be able to sufficiently fund all the various other agencies that we have in Gov Guam. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other senator wish to pose questions to the members of the Revenue and Tax now that we've invited them down? All right.
Hold on.
Do you wish to close?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to withdraw my amendment and bookmark this section. Withdraw
Bookmark
the
it.
amendment that I made and bookmark this section.
Why would we want to do that? We've had thorough discussion, the motion was made, thorough discussion was made, now let's call for the vote.
I understand that, but I think it will be relevant when when GPD is here and we ask questions on why they need the money. If they don't need this extra money and there's no good reasoning, then we can move forward.
I object
And I
to-
would not
object to
propose the
bookmarking.
amendment. And also, remember, at the hearing, they requested 13 positions, not 25.
Mr. Chairman, I object to the bookmarking motion.
I don't think
it's been
we
thoroughly
could object to
discussed. Every
bookmarking the motion,
department in
Mr.
this
Chair.
government will come in here and will justify that they need every penny that they can get. So let's
Mr.
call
Chair,
for the
just a
vote.
point of information.
We have to move through
I
this.
understand. Then if you
And-
decline this bookmarking, then we need to, what is the purpose of giving us the rule that we can bookmark?
Well, you've asked to bring them in, and that's why I keep telling everybody, understand that this is a really tight budget. And until you're sure that you're going to be able to bring people in that are convinced 8 people to change a vote, it's not going to happen.
I understand, Mr. Chair, it's a really tight budget. What I don't understand is when they ask for 13 employees and we give them 12, then it shows that it's really not a tight budget. I'm just simply asking that I withdraw my amendment and that I bookmark.
No,
And
this
I think it's
amendment was
unfair
not
for you
made.
to pick and choose whether we can bookmark or not.
The objection has been made. I just want to make a clarification. It was the committee's decision, not the chair's. I don't want to take it away from him, but it was our decision to increase the personnel at Rev and Tax because we wanted to try to get more money for the next fiscal year. It pains me to limit everybody's appropriations. I wish I could adopt the governor's revenue. I cannot. The only way that I know how to be able to leave to one of you this chair with a functioning Rev and Tax is to give them the employees so that when you have this chair, you don't have to be the mean mommy or the mean daddy that says no. I don't cherish that role, but it is the role that I have to take, and at this point, the only thing that I could figure was a small investment in Rev and Tax in the hopes that even if it's just 5 or 10 of them that produce as opposed to the 25, that's still an additional $7 million, which would get us the money that we've been trying to find for add the additional 6 that was requested by BBMR.
Mr. Chair, I don't want to argue with the allocation that you decided, that you discerned on. I'm simply asking to bookmark the section and that we move forward. That's all.
Okay. Do you need them any further? Otherwise, I'll excuse them.
Could I please, I'm sorry, I know I asked earlier, but can I just ask 2 more questions? Because I was just looking at these papers that they handed out, and just to confirm, but over fiscal year 2017, in the motor vehicle division, the only position that's been filled is, it says funding was used to hire word processing secretary. And then in this one, I see a vehicle registration officer 1. But none of the driver's license examiner positions were filled, and all the rest of the, is it 33 positions that were filled during fiscal year 2017, newly filled, were all in the other divisions, right? Not in motor vehicles. Okay, just wanted to confirm that.
Do we need them? Do we need these two any further, or can we excuse them?
Just follow up, sorry, one more. So with the 33 new, or maybe 30 revenue officers that were hired in fiscal year 2017, has that resulted in an increase in collections?
Okay,
Yes, like I said earlier, in FY15, the total collection was roughly about $22, $23 million from the receivable, and I think we doubled that for FY16. So it's yes. In other words, part of our program is aggressive collections at Department of Revenue and Taxation. We're really going after those receivables to bring in those cash. So it made a big difference.
Sorry, what about FY17? Because that's the report that you gave us as to the hires, 33 new employees. So,
sorry. You just rephrase that question? Is that 33 revenue officers or overall?
There's different
various
things. There's property tax.
Right, there's various positions.
Revenue officers, tax accounting
Right, so you're
technicians,
asking if
but
those
non-motor
positions-
vehicle division officers, it looks like.
Right,
Right.
but you're asking if those positions bring in revenue? What was the question?
Yeah, the premise of our current discussion is that this increase of $1 million is going to bring in more tax collection. So I'm just wondering, was there any effect of the 30s, maybe 29 employees that were hired during 2017?
Okay, but they're not all.
All in tax, so they're not all in tax. So it's that's why I was saying earlier.
Yeah, they almost, according to this, they almost all are.
Licensed
I mean-
officer. You're looking at which one?
And then remember that some of them, I believe most of them were promotions, so they went from a 1 to a 2. So not all 33 are new positions.
Thank you.
So was there any increase in tax collection during FY 2017 compared to other years, or based on employees, or just based on luck?
I don't have the report for FY17. I think it's incomplete, the one I have now. So, but I think the trend is that we are increasing collections in the revenue officers area under the receivables. If that's your question, we are increasing it. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take a short recess at this point. Turn off. In light of the hour, let's break until 1:30.